gentlemen, the inaugural meeting of the Slacktivist Action Group. And to be honest, what a pleasure to see so many Slacktivists having made it out themselves tonight. Congratulate yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. You have done a fine, fine thing. Obviously, some of you may only have a vague idea of what a Slacktivist in fact is, and that if you had more than a vague idea of what a Slacktivist was, you wouldn't be a Slacktivist, essentially. So that is what you are. You are a Slacktivist. If you wanted to have some idea of what a Slacktivist is, okay, maybe the motto might be, yes we can, but maybe tomorrow. Your country needs you, but if it's relying on you, it's probably in a bit of trouble. The plan for tonight, okay, it's a very vague plan, can change at any moment, okay, but the vague plan is, we are going to have 3 fabulous guests up on here, right? They're going to be passionate about their subject. Some of that passion is going to rub off on us, okay? And we're going to go out and decide to do something before the next meeting on November the 30th. We meet, for those of you who give a shit about these things, right? We meet the last Monday of every month here at 7 o'clock, and then we keep going in the bar afterwards when they kick us out at 8. That's the plan. So before we do that, we've got a very important task that we need to go with tonight, right? We need to elect a secretary, okay? So now before you get nervous that you're going to have to do an awful lot, let me explain what the role of the secretary is for tonight. Essentially, it's only a role for tonight. It's not you're not a job for life. It's just for the next hour, okay? It also doesn't involve you having to do very much. Essentially, what you've got to do is vaguely take some sort of mental or physical note, that doesn't need to be much, about what goes on during the next hour, right? But they don't have to be at all accurate, right? We only need about 30 seconds from you, right? You can make it all up. But the only thing you've got to do, and it can in fact be as short as this, at the end of your speech, when you've actually summed up the minutes of the meeting at the end of the show, you just need to stand up and go, I resign, okay? So it's basically, I'm not going to expect you to go the full hand, really keen arm in the air, waving it about. I realise that the energy levels aren't necessarily quite up there, right? So what I want you to do is maybe just if you thought that you could possibly play the role of secretary tonight, maybe just a little finger in the air, okay? Just see if you can summon enough energy. And remember, all you've got to do is yeah, that's very good. That's very good. No, I've seen the finger go up. That is incredibly keen down here. That is wonderful. Big round of applause for our secretary in the second row. To be honest, I wasn't expecting that to be quite as easy as it was. I felt sure we were going to have to go to the next level, which was going to be, in fact, me going, okay, so obviously whoever wants to be secretary hasn't got enough energy. Would anybody like to point to somebody they came with? Which I thought was going to work well. But welcome along, madam, and that's fabulous. What's your name? Olivia. Thank you very much, Olivia. So you're just going to take a few little notes in your head, or not, as the case may be. You're imagining some surreal things, and then at the end we'll come to you, and Olivia is going to tell us what actually happened for those of us who've got attention deficit disorder. Okay?
The difference is Jamie Oliver's come along, he's spotted this idea, he's running with it, and I'm just jumping on the wave really and saying, okay, let's do it now. Let's label products with teaspoonfuls of sugar, and let's have a global target across Britain for the overall amount of sugar we consume, so that the government can take measures like taxing fizzy drinks, etc., to reduce how much we consume.
Yeah, and I did notice that he was in front of the select committee, Jamie Oliver, wasn't he? And the quote was, he said he wanted people to get medieval with banning high caffeine energy drinks in the same way to young kids, in the same way that we ban alcohol to them. And I think he's absolutely right. In medieval times, obviously, it was very hard for young kids to get hold of high caffeine energy drinks, although they were a little more relaxed about alcohol, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. Well, it's very serious. I'm not saying it's as serious as tobacco, but obviously, if you get a packet of fags these days, there's a picture of open heart surgery, so we could have pictures of double chins and this sort of thing, and thick fingers and this sort of thing on packets of sweets, possibly, but that isn't in my bill.
No. But Jamie Oliver's saying that actually in his restaurants now there is already a sugar tax on sugary drinks. He was saying, wasn't he, that he wanted essentially 7 pence on sugary drinks. He compared it to the tax on plastic bags, I believe. That obviously has come in 5 pence, and that seems like a good idea given that plastic bags take 100 years apparently to biodegrade, although that did come as something of a surprise to me, because often when you go to a supermarket, the bag often seems to biodegrade as soon as you actually put anything heavy in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly.
There's hypocrisy, but there is also this broader attack on civil liberties. Even if we jump through all the hurdles and we mount a lawful strike, they're now saying that we have to produce 2 weeks in advance protest and picketing plans, setting out everything we intend to do, if we're going to carry a loud hailer, if we're going to carry a banner, but also saying that we have to tell them if we're going to use Facebook, if we're going to open a Twitter account, if we're going to write a blog, if so, what are we going to say in that blog? And even to the point where we have to wear armbands to identify ourselves.
I mean, the thing about Facebook is you're never quite sure when you're going to use it, are you? It's all, you do it when you're waiting for somebody else or whatever. To suddenly go, oh no, I can't use it now, I'm told the government. Yeah. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
But the point is, if we don't, we can be fined up to £20,000 each and every time.
The Psychoactive Substances Bill, which is currently going through Parliament at the moment. This bill is basically a response to legal highs. Quite a surprise in some ways that it's going through Parliament. I believe, given that it's been tried in Ireland, hasn't worked particularly well. No two scientists agree exactly what psychoactive actually constitutes. Somebody getting excited by the whole idea. They mentioned legal highs and the pint glass has gone over straight away. Right? But could include, they were saying, possibly include nutmeg, incense, or a bunch of flowers. So Interflora in a bit of trouble, Ian. Is that basically what we're saying?
I mean, it almost certainly includes all of those things, if you were to take it technically.
Yeah.
They don't really want to take it technically. What they want to do is they basically want to stay one sort of step ahead of all of the chemists. Chemists have this very clever thing. As soon as you ban a drug, they'll just slightly tweak the molecular structure of it. That way it's legal again and off we go. So the government wants to stop that. Its way of doing that is to just say, we ban all things which change your head. And of course, anything changes your head. I mean, a song can change your head. Food, if it reminds you of your mum's cooking, that can change your head. So there's an exception for food and for drink.
Yeah.
There's an exception for alcohol, because, we all like doing that. There's an exception for cigarettes. Today, they put in a new exception, which is for poppers. Yeah. The reason they did that is because there's a potential sort of public health risk. Lots of gay people use poppers, and if you take it away from them, it actually increases the chances that they're going to get AIDS or HIV through sex.
Yeah.
So that has been added to it now, but the rest of the time, anything that changes your head in any way is about to be made illegal.
The exception that I liked was they made an exception. Tea had to be an exception apparently, because we could have a legal high with tea otherwise, right? But homeopathic remedies, they said, we'll exempt those, you can get an effect from those, but the irony of course being that you won't get any effect from homeopathic remedies whatsoever. It's water with a hint of water, isn't it? So there was no need for that particular exemption.
Yeah, they got away with that one. They did write a letter to the churches actually on incense. So incense, they said, well, look, we're not going to go for you guys because you're not smelling it directly out of some sort of receptacle, which it doesn't even figure in the bill. And secondly, they said, you're not using it for its psychoactive effects. Now, the only good thing that could happen with this legislation is that it goes through and we have a court case to decide once and for all why the church is using incense. Because it looks like probably they do rather like the psychoactive effect that incense has.
Yeah. Well, certainly, I wasn't aware that nutmeg could be psychoactive, I'll be honest with you. If you were at a party and somebody passed you a bit of nutmeg, it would come as something of a surprise. But I should be tucking into my eggnog a little keener than I was previously now. No. But the bloke who was presenting this bill, he made sort of something of a mess of it in the sense that it seems unclear as to exactly where it's going. It looks like that purchase of legal highs that are imported will be illegal, but purchase, if you actually get them in this country, could be okay. Various sort of anomalies like that kicking around in the bill.
Yeah, but even that, we had to guess that bit. Because he goes into the Commons chamber, the Home Office Minister, Policing Minister, who's in charge of the bill.
Mike Penning, Conservative Hemel Hempstead, for those who are of that interested.
Disturbingly accurate knowledge of the
thank you
government
very much.
you have.
I thought I should at least... A little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, isn't that what they say? So
So he goes in, he doesn't know what on earth he's doing. He starts saying, the idea behind this bill is you don't criminalise possession, you just criminalise supply. He starts saying, well, actually, we're going to criminalise the people that are buying the drug if they're buying it at any point. He does this for about half an hour until eventually they stop him. You know, one of his own sort of MP colleagues sort of says, well, just to make it very clear to the minister, when he says that, does he actually mean, in fact, that is not true at all? And so he just sort of gave in. But the actual bloke in charge of the bill doesn't have any idea who he's trying to criminalise. That's why he's passing a bill that cannot define what it is that it is trying to make illegal. So like these guys they're completely off the plot. And really it comes from this kind of hysterical response that we have to drugs, where drugs, years ago, that we lost any connection between the way the legislation works and actually the problem that it's trying to address. So the only way that you can address, for instance, cannabis, I mean, it's been illegal for nearly 90 years now, and I don't know whether you've walked around, but it doesn't seem to be going anywhere fast. This is nearly 100 years of policy failure that we've got on this. So the only way you can still believe in a war on drugs is if you've become completely disconnected from reality, and that's exactly what the Psychoactive Substances Bill does.
Well, that's it. It's interesting that you're saying that poppers has been made an exception, because there was worry that in fact it was going to be deliberately included within the bill, and obviously in terms of the MPs, the select committee had said no, poppers shouldn't be included within the bill. Somebody's having a little sneezing attack there. I suddenly wanted to think they've got a little bit of nutmeg in their pocket, and they're thinking, I'm just going to tuck this in. So shall we widen the debate out? You've obviously heard the chat with Geraint. Did you want to say anything on the Psychoactive Substances Bill, Geraint?
Will you oppose it?
Well,
If we get enough people to write to you at your MP's address.
I think, to be fair, there are issues around legal highs. I mean, what happens is people, where I am in Swansea, can go in a shop and there'll be a little packet which will have these various pictures, of strange demons, whatever they are, which basically signal that this will get you off your head if you take this and it's legal. Yeah,
is that what it needs to?
And if it's next to the nutmeg, right, then obviously you can distinguish the difference. And I know there are these issues about definition and effectiveness and getting the pusher rather than the user and all the rest of it. And there's a debate about cannabis, but I think the government sort of got its heart in the right place in some sense. But it might end up being something that criminalises something that shouldn't be criminalised, and innocent people are brought in. So it is very difficult.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you're worrying about the drugs that are in the head shops, I mean, when we did this in Ireland, when we did it in Poland, we saw a 6% increase almost overnight in the way that this went out to dealers and on the dark web. If you really want control of this stuff, you leave it on the high street. When you ban those head shops, you actually lose control of it altogether, and then you really can't control the kids that are taking this stuff.
Yeah, well, there has been cases, you see, again, locally, of people who've taken these drugs, have bought them in shops and have become very ill and near to death and all the rest of it. But of course, there's got to be a balance. And I mean,
supposedly, 29 cases last year, but actually only one of them was due to the legal high itself. I mean, the rest of it, they've been taking a cocktail of drugs and said, well, legal drug-related deaths last year. The truth, there's a bit of a hysteria that doesn't really have anything behind it.
Well, I've got an open mind because I haven't taken any yet, but there we are.
Oh, well, we can sort that out backstage. I mean, that's fine.
We've got an opportunity now, ladies and gentlemen, to maybe ask a question to our panel. I'm not expecting too much from our gathered masses here. Some of you may be able to rise yourselves from slumber. As I said earlier, we have in fact got one question penciled in for this, but we'll see how it goes. So if anybody would like to stick up a little hand, if they've got a little question that they would like to ask, possibly Ian on drugs, or that didn't come out quite as I meant it to, but has anybody got a little question that they would like to ask either Geraint or Francis or Ian at all?
No.
Yes, lady in the second row there. Just wait a moment, because I think Tom's going to come with a microphone just so as we can catch this for the podcast, if that's all right. It's all turned a bit question time now, but we haven't quite got the technology that they have. But I did quite well by getting your right sex, which occasionally David Dimbleby doesn't actually manage, does it? So,
thank you.
No problems.
I just wanted to ask Geraint, have you thought about linking up with the British Dental Association as well? Because we're talking about overweight and children and obesity, but there's so many kids that are going through general anaesthetics because they're having multiple extractions because of the sugar. So could you maybe have a look at that?
Yeah, I'll get onto that. Many years ago, in fact, I used to work for Colgate, and in the history of tooth decay is that when they introduced fluoride into toothpaste, basically tooth decay was almost eliminated, and now we're seeing this massive rise with, as you say, all these awful extractions and huge rise in denture use and all this other
Basically,
stuff.
so
And
you left
the
Colgate
answer is yes,
and it's all gone tits up since then, is
well,
that
that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
What can you say?
That was an excellent question. Thank you very much for that. If that's the only question we have, I'll be absolutely pleased that my audience came out with something quite as clever as that. So that is excellent work. Don't feel if anybody else, or just having a look around, see if anybody else has got nobody else. Everybody nervous now, going, oh yeah, excellent, good sir. Don't worry about this. You go for it. You wait for that mic as well. That's super. Thank you very much.
This is for Francis.
Lovely.
If I go to your meeting, next Monday, do I have to wear an armband? Because I'm rather concerned.
Well, maybe that's right. Maybe what we should all do is just bombard the government with requests for Facebook. Essentially, every time we want to go on Facebook, we just demand every 2 weeks can we go on, and basically we give them so much shit that all of their servers get overblown, and then they can't operate, and then they go, oh no, it's a stupid idea. But yeah, I like the idea that we all turn up with armbands next Monday. I think the Slacktivist Action Group is onto something there, sir.
Exactly.
Maybe we'll put...
Good idea. I think, the point is we'll either all refuse to wear them or we'll all wear them, and if so, we'll make sure we supply some.
Or maybe we can have an armband that is in fact a suit, and it's an armband that's a really long armband that you can't actually tell from a sleeve.
We can have a song, Arm Band-Aid.
Lovely. I've got to say, it's bold of you, Geraint, given that your early pun didn't go for much. But no, as you rightly say, perseverance. Perseverance is the way forward.
That's where I get my speeches.
So, anybody else? Anybody else got? Yeah, third row there. We've got gentlemen in the third row. What question would you like to ask?
Hello, everyone, and I'm a visitor from across the pond. A septic tank.
Lovely. Yeah, your knowledge of Cockney is excellent, sir.
And I was wondering, reading something about the new leader, Jeremy Corbyn. He said he was a Republican, which means not in favor of the monarchy. And I was wondering where the debate was that currently among you guys.
Okay, so this is an American in the audience asking, because of course a Republican means something very different over there. At the moment, it seems that Donald Trump is the favourite Republican. Quite an interesting. You're not a fan, sir, but I don't think we're really a fan. It's sort of imagine Nigel Farage and Simon Cowell had a love child brought up by hamsters, essentially, isn't it? That's exactly. But yes, where are we on that debate? Ian, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, I mean, as a country, we're nowhere. I mean, we don't really talk about it, and hardly anyone really wants to get rid of the monarchy. And I have the same, and I have it. My left-wing friends hate me for quite liking the monarchy, and I like it because I find patriotism this quite dangerous, potentially volatile thing. And if you can just get it and put it in a box somewhere, that's probably the safest place for it. And the monarchy, because it's unelected, because there is no sense of popular support for the person who's been picked to be the head of state, actually sucks the emotion out. Because as soon as you pick a guy like, your president, half of the country didn't pick him. And there they feel sort of, it introduces this kind of emotional sense of betrayal to the way that politics is conducted. So I'm very happy with having the Queen, even though, I can tell, I'm capable of seeing that they are all quite mad. I do see that.
Francis or Geraint, did you want to come in on that at all?
Well, it's very controversial, but I should say that Jeremy Corbyn is clearly in favour of QE2, as in quantitative easing 2. And he didn't sing on the first rendition, the national anthem, but I understand that he's going to in future. And there's a lot of people like the Queen and some people don't like the Queen. So there we are. We live in a democracy.
That is the level of debate we were expecting tonight.
Fantastic. I've come to the right place.
I think on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we will thank our guests. Hopefully, thank you for your questions. But if you could have a big round of applause for our three guests, that has been absolutely fabulous. Thank you very much. If anybody's got any suggestions of something that they've got, I give the example of in the publicity for this show, we say we could do a sit-in, or we could do a lie-down, or we could flash mob a coffee morning. Basically, we don't really give a shit. We could do absolutely anything. It's up to you to suggest it. And for those people who are listening to the podcast at home, then, we don't have to be based in London. I'm very happy to travel, right? We can get on the train. We can go anywhere. We can do anything. Obviously, sit-in is a very slacktivist sort of action, in effect, because we're trying to change the world by doing fuck all, essentially. So that would possibly be a suggestion. The only thing I would say, if you are going to suggest something for the group to do, it's got to have two things. One, it's got to be before the next meeting, so as we can then talk about it at the next meeting, hopefully, and how well we got on, how many of us turned up, whether it was just me on my own, right, that sort of thing. Obviously, before we go, all we've got to do now, ladies and gentlemen, is just for those of us who've got some sort of problems with short-term memory, we get a recap from our secretary of tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Olivia, ladies and gentlemen. So, here we go. Here comes the microphone to Olivia.
Hi.
Hi.
Basically, you talked about Jamie Oliver, plastic surgery, really bad puns, something about Canada. A 66-year-old virgin.
I don't remember that, but it sounds good. Sounds good.
Oh no, vegan.
Vegan.
I can't read.
Your mother's looking at you now going, oh no.
Talked about Facebook and Twitter, armbands, penis.
Penises. There was definitely a mention of a penis.
Yeah.
You all right?
Pigs, Christmas cards, tax credits, drugs, exotic book / website, bunch of flowers, music, nutmeg, and then
This is like the generation game as was, isn't it?
George Osborne, and then Simon Cowell and Nick Clegg's love child.
Very good.
That was about it.
And don't forget the most important thing of your speech.
I resign as secretary.
Hooray! Super. Thank you very much to Olivia, our secretary. So, all it remains for me to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to obviously thank you Slacktivists for coming tonight. I would say I look forward to seeing you all at the next meeting, but I look forward probably to none of you being at the next meeting, but I look forward to all of your apologies for absence posted at either on Facebook or Twitter or whatever it may be via the website, please, www.andyparsons.co.uk. And this will all be going out on a podcast. So it'll be on Acast, it'll also be on iTunes, should be available within 48 hours. So get involved, even, pure slacktivism, click on something and you feel that you've done something. Thank you again for your time. And if you could give one more round of applause for our three guests and for our secretary tonight. Thank you very much and good night. Okay.